When fighting to vote, women were told it's better to be seen and not heard. We disagreed. This is their story. Take it away, Hayley.
Scotland's first suffrage groups appeared in the late 1860s. These groups of women were known as suffragists, and they demanded the vote as a basic human right and a means to improving women's lives. The suffragists wanted equality and justice for all women, and they would use peaceful legal tactics in order to win support.
In Inverclyde, there were a number of well-attended gatherings in favour of women's suffrage. However, all of this peaceful campaigning only led to minor change, and in the 1900s, some of the groups went militant.
This led to the creation of the Suffragettes. The Suffragettes and the suffragists wanted the same things, but the Suffragettes were willing to break the law and go to prison for their beliefs. Scottish suffragettes poured acid into pillar boxes, chained themselves to railings, smashed windows and slashed portraits of the king. They even set fire to important buildings. When in prison, suffragettes would often refuse to eat, and authorities' attempts to force feed them sparked major public outcry. And rightly so. In Inverclyde, it was rumoured that the suffragettes had burnt down Kelly House in Wemyss Bay on the 5th of December in 1913. No one was hurt or killed by the fire, but the damage was extensive. Militant suffragettes were said to have caused this damage, as police found papers bearing the words "Retaliation for the Cottonmouths Act." The Cottonmouths Act was legislation that allowed for the early release of prisoners who were affected by the hunger strikes and were at risk of death. Once released, they were taken back to prison once they had begun recovering, and the whole process began again. Prominent suffragette Emmeline Pankhurst was in prison on hunger strike at the time the fire broke out at Kelly House, another reason why militant suffragettes were linked with the fire. As well as campaigning, the suffragette movement benefited from the First World War. This was the first chance women had to take jobs that were traditionally male. The suffragette movement was suspended in 1914 when the First World War broke out. It was estimated that by 1916 there were 1,800 women employed by the Clyde shipyards, and roughly 1,000 more employed as labourers. After the war and all those years campaigning, the Representation of the People's Act in 1918 gave the vote to women over the age of 30, but only if they met certain property qualifications. 10 years later, they gained electoral equality with men, and the voting age was lowered to 21. Since then, women's rights have increased. The voting age was lowered to 18, and we've seen more representation in politics. In 1933, the societies were dissolved due to financial reasons. However, the women still met at Queen Margaret's Union at the University of Glasgow up until the 1960s. It's important to remember that many people, including substantial numbers of women, opposed the suffragettes. They believed that women should stay at home and look after their husbands and children. They believed that women had no place in public life. But the suffragettes and suffragists still fought for what was right and made it easier for us to create change by voting.
Now, we're not saying that the fight for equality is over, but if we've learned anything from the suffragists, it's that we need to stand up for what is right and that we can do it together.